Alright, we are recording. Throat is still bad, unfortunately, but read chapter 4, and yeah, I got notes. Alright, and seriously, some of this is just. It's not like The Empire Strikes Back. I'm not feeling that with things not making sense for how progression is going. Um, Although, still, I got issues with the Viceroy, more so now, even. Um, but it's still got that kind of. I think it was in A New Hope that there was this bad writing where it was like, get that this doesn't make sense. This doesn't follow from what you've literally established even earlier on the page. Anyway, fun stuff. So it starts with them. Well, the invasion is taking place on Naboo, and Obi-Wan is over here, Qui-Gon's over there. Why they're separated is not explained. This would actually been very good to explain, because I mean, it's like, did they decide take different ships so that if they find one, the other isn't also discovered? Okay. You're invading a planet, though. Planets are big, so you could, if you're invading one, you could land a ship here and a ship here. So that shouldn't be what they're doing. So then they're most likely going to be on the same ship. Okay. Why are they separated? I mean, it's like, okay, so it's one ship that then drops off, multiple of the tank things, not the tank things, the carrier thing. So it's like, okay, they're on different carriers. But you only need to be worried about being discovered during the flight down. So once it gets down there, then you could come back together to make sure you are together, because that's the time that you know you're nearest. If you're going with the carrier things when they leave and they go in separate directions, you now lose each other. Why are they separated? I mean, it's like, this is really dumb. I get that it's setting things up, but still is dumb. Or you could even have it that they are initially together, but something separates them, because it is possible. In fact, there's even something that is mentioned a little later. It's a couple notes away. That could explain the separation. That, kind of. Apparently, the lightsabers are a very poorly designed piece of technology. Because if you don't turn it off, and I mean off, not just you're not with the blade out, but apparently you need to actually turn it off. Otherwise, if it gets wet, it shorts. Because this happened to Obi-Wan, so he can't use his. So in the movie, you do see Obi-Wan's being chased, and it's Qui-Gon that protects him and Jar Jar, because we've run into Jar Jar by this time. Well, it's because Qui-Gon did turn his off, and it's apparently now reactivated it, and then turned on the blade so he can defend himself, while Obi-Wan's lightsaber has shorted and is dirty and all that. This is a very badly designed piece of technology, then, that it can't handle getting wet. And it also makes me wonder, then, does that mean that the best way to actually defeat a Jedi is with a Super Soaker? I mean, suddenly, okay, I guess Darth Maul is one hell of a threat if you're on Tatooine, where there isn't much water, but if you're on Naboo, I mean, I get it. I love, in my opinion, is the best fight in the prequel trilogy, is the final, the Duel of the Fates, Maul, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan. I love that. It is beautiful. And by the way, I will even add, part of the reason why I think that's better than Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting in Revenge of the Sith, that is a very dark scene. It's hard to see things. But the aesthetic of Naboo is brighter, so you can see far more of what's going on there. And there's also, in the Duel of Fates at the end of Phantom Menace, there's also, I think, for the movie, I don't think it is set up as well how close Obi-Wan and Anakin are. But that's the movie. The book could legitimately be a lot better. Just like the end of Return of the Jedi is far better in that book than in the movie. Anyway. But yeah, so come back to it. You could have it set up that they separate because Obi-Wan discovers he can't use his lightsaber and they're being chased. He now needs to run. Qui-Gon defends him, and Qui-Gon defends and kills whoever's following. So that could explain the separation. Totally reasonable to do that. But for whatever reason, they said, nah, we're not going to do it that way. We're just going to, for no reason, have them be separated. And there's a way that this actually gets to work. Oh, yeah. Because also Obi-Wan is, like, trying to hide underwater, and it's like poking his head up, looking around, getting a breath, going down, swimming over. I need to explain this now, because this is about when it happens, but I will be bringing that up in a moment. Right, but the second note I have. Third note was about the lightsaber thing, which is just, they're really not well designed, apparently. Anyway. So, for this mission, second note. For this mission, Qui-Gon decided to study for it. This makes perfect sense. Except for the whole, when do you have time to do it, I guess, kind of question. But we can set that aside. Because it could just be while traveling to Naboo, he studied on the ship. That's fine. So he knows the flora and fauna. Because it does describe, he's running through and he's like, oh, I know that. This makes sense. That is a good level of preparedness to have. Although, there's also no reason for him to expect to ever land on Naboo. Like, if this mission were to go as expected, he and Obi-Wan would have landed on the Federation battleship, compelled the Viceroy to end the blockade, and then left. Never even breathing Naboo air. So why is he bothering learning all this? I'm not sure. But it does also set up one very, very significant issue. He doesn't know about the Gungans. And it's like, okay, you can argue, well, they're secretive. It's like, okay. They are a super intelligent species, though. Okay, and to be clear, when I say super intelligence, because some people want to say that, oh, well, these animals are intelligent in real life. It's like, no, but I don't want to argue with them on semantics of that, so I'll just say humans are the only super intelligent species on the planet. We are. There are other species. You can say they're intelligent, fine. They're not on our level. All right, the gulf between us is almost immeasurable. Okay, as intelligent as you think any of the species are, it's not like they have language. Gungans do. It's not like they have full use of technology. They don't have storytelling. I mean, it's like there is nothing about them that brings them anywhere near parity with us. The Gungans are also super intelligent. Are they very intelligent? Based on how they talk, not really, but then it's also the membrane to their cities is something that the Jedi have never encountered before. It's fascinating to a degree for them. They don't use the term fascinating in there, but it is they've never encountered this before. They're from Coruscant, the planet that is an entire city, single city over the entire thing. Very technologically advanced, have never encountered something like this before. Clearly, the Gungans, despite how they talk, very, very intelligent. I'm sorry, no, you're not hiding that they exist. Even if they don't really have much contact, they're still going to need to come up for some things. I was like, they need some way of recycling their air. They probably will cycle it with the atmosphere. There's more land up there for things like growing food. Yeah, they could be doing it in the oceans, but it might not be as easy. I mean, just... No, I'm sorry. I'm rejecting the idea fully that they are unknown. They might prefer to be isolated. That's fine. No issue with that. That makes sense. But the idea that you could have a species at that level of development that has zero presence on the surface such that no one is... In fact, Boss Nass even acknowledges that he has spoken with the Naboo a couple times before. So clearly there is knowledge of them. Qui-Gon has to know that they exist, and yet he doesn't. This also feeds into, Boss Nass points out, the droids probably don't know we're here. Well, the Naboo should know that you're here. Therefore, that should be a known thing that the droids will know, but it also leads into something else. Why are they landing? Why is the droid invasion landing anywhere near them? Because it's like, okay, they're landing here. They want to get to Theed, the capital world. And I know, I don't actually know where these two are on the surface of the planet. But how are the Gungans going to speed the Jedi and Jar Jar on their way to Theed? Through the core. Now, granted, it's been a while since I've done some of this math, but I'm pretty sure the only way that it would be faster to go through the core, which, by the way, makes absolutely no sense anyway, but because you're not going to have an ocean going, a path for water going through the mantle. But it's the only way that would make sense is if you're really far away, for that to be a short route. Which means then that they have to be really far away. Why would you ever land an invasion force there? I mean, unless they're trying to use core for shorthand of just, well, no, there's a bunch of underground tunnels that the seas go through, then you can travel through that. It's like, that's not the core, though. That's not the core of the planet. We'll find out in the next chapter, potentially, but still, it's like, why would you ever land that far away? If you're trying to invade and you want to capture the capital city, that's kind of what you do when you want to take something over. I mean, to be fair, governments can have continuity by going to another city, but it still is, that's symbolically the most significant place to capture. So it's like, you should be landing. I can understand you're far enough away to be outside of defenses, but you're still going to be near. Near that, not so far away that you have to. It doesn't make any sense. This actually does kind of seem like Empire Strikes Back, in that it's a decision made not because it is sensible, not because there's any rationale to it, but because it serves what is wanted for the story. It's not serving the story. If it served the story, then it would be rational for the story. No, it's serving something else entirely. Just a desire. Now, true, we could just decide, well, no, this is actually much closer, and the Gungans are just lying when they say go through the core, or the core. That they are referring to something else entirely, like I said. Because there's no way you're going through the mantle and coming. Although we will see. But you're not going to have. I don't think you're going to have an actual barrier, an actual interface that has liquid water going to the magma of the core. No, because it'd at minimum be a boiling point between the interface, because the magma is going to be above the boiling temperature of water. So you're going to have steam pockets there. You're not getting through that. Not easily. That would damage and destroy plenty of ships. Anyhow, yeah, so it's like this is very... You got so many problems here. It doesn't make sense. Also, another thing about the landing. Even if you are like, well, okay, they're trying to avoid detection. If I'm the Naboo, I'm monitoring the whole of the blockade, so when I see ships coming out of any of those, I'm tracking them the entire way down. So it's like, oh, they're invading us. Doesn't matter where they are, where they're actually landing, that's an invasion. I'm watching all of it. Okay? Which then also leads to another interesting problem, because it's like, okay, well, in theory, the Trade Federation is jamming them now. That's reasonable. In fact, it's even said that they're jamming, that they should be jamming them. Okay, well, that's another tip-off that, oh, we're being invaded now. So again, it's a landing far away does you nothing. Landing outside defenses does, but landing so super far away does nothing, because if you're jamming them, then you only need to be concerned with visual sighting. At least until you get really close. So it's like you can be really close. So, yeah. But what I also want to point out here is that the jamming didn't start until the invasion, which means that the arrival of the ambassadorial ship carrying Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan would have been something they could track. Which, I actually did look back at it to see exactly how it was stated. I have had enough of pretense, Viceroy. I'm aware that the Supreme Chancellor's ambassadors are with you now, that you have been commanded to reach a settlement. What is it to be? So this is from Chapter 3. Right? Yes. Okay. Which is also a problem, because how would she... I guess her knowing that ambassadors were sent, not knowing that they were Jedi, is reasonable. Do you think the Senate would be confused? It's like, wait, all of our ambassadors are here. Who did you send? But anyway. So in theory, that's a... They were tracking and saw the ship arrive. So then... And it's painted red, which is ambassadorial neutral. It's stated at the start. So it's like, you're going to recognize this ship. It's probably broadcasting something, identifying itself. So you know what the ship is. So the Viceroy is saying, I know nothing about any ambassadors. You must be mistaken. It's like, what the hell is with his lying here? And this is shortly before the other lie that I call out, that I called out in the previous video. Your Highness, we would never do anything in defiance of the Senate's will. It's like, dude, these are really dumb lies. Because, like, I mean, we know nothing about this. It's like, well, we saw the ship arrive. It's an ambassadorial ship. Those carry ambassadors. We were told ambassadors are coming to you. So we know the ambassadors came to you. Your lying does nothing here. I mean, it's like, we know you're lying. And this isn't a, like, subtle kind of thing where it's like, oh, yes, I know you're lying. When you say, no. This is you're just lying for no benefit. I mean, I'm trying to think, because there are good examples where you know somebody is lying. I just, in a story, I'm just trying to think. Iron Man, right? Where Tony Stark is told that if he builds the Jericho, be allowed to leave. And, even shakes on it. And Tony even says to Jensen, no, he's not. You're basically saying, I know he's lying to me. And Jensen's like, okay, well, yeah, that you'll be free to go. Shakes his hands like, no, I'm not. And Jensen's like, no, you're not. But it's still, there's an actual reason for that lie. Because, I don't remember what the guy's name was, who's just part of the Ten Rings. He's trying to coerce Stark to do something for him. So he's trying to barter with him, saying that, you do this, you live. You'll be fine. Because that's what we want. We don't want you, we want the technology. That's fine. There's a reason to do that. So it makes sense for that lie. And also, I mean, true, that is one way he doesn't think Stark knows he's lying. There are examples, I just can't think of one, but I can, like, see them in my mind. I just can't, they're too fuzzy for me to describe. Where both sides know the other is lying, but it's still, you have to continue the pretense. There are reasons for that. Good reasons. This isn't one of them. This is just I know you're lying. I mean, it's like, I see you lying right now. It doesn't improve your position. You're not trying to barter with me. You're not trying to convince me of anything. I was like, in this, they're already enemies. You lying, pretending to be my friend. It's like, you blockaded my planet. Why are you acting? I'm not going to like you no matter what you do here, except for leave. You lying to me doesn't make me like you. I mean, the Viceroy is really stupid. Or the writer is. I'd rather go with the Viceroy is really stupid. That he does just constantly lie, even though there's zero reason for it. Zero justification for it. Which is... kind of goes back to the point I was making in the previous chapter as well. The whole... Sidious is not intimidating when this is what we got for his lieutenant, for the moment. I know, we get Maul, but that's later. He's being introduced as somebody that I don't give a shit about him. He doesn't mean anything to me. He's not intimidating. Anyway, sorry. Okay. Already talked about Obi-Wan's lightsaber. Next point I have is, so they pull out the portable breathing devices, which in the movie is fine, although there is a question of why do they have these? Because again, there was no reason to believe that they would set foot on the planet, so why are they bringing something that's only useful underwater? Okay, let's go with, well, it's small. I mean, here, I got a flash drive here. They looked, like a little bit larger than this, and do that, and then you're breathing underwater. By the way, it is portable breathing device. Hang on, typo there in my notes. Portable breathing device, right? That's what it's described as. Not that it's portable air canisters. So that's like there's some James Bond where he has something that's like, well, that's got a limited amount of air supply. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because, as I said before, Obi-Wan was hiding in the water and would poke his head up to look around, get a breath, go back down, swim over. well, wait a minute, he had this on him. Why was he popping up for air? Popping out of the water for air. Could have just put that in, stayed down as long as he wanted to, and just, he could even be doing that and then just using the Force to try to sense when Qui-Gon is nearby to then come up and find him. It's like, there's no reason for him to exit the water, because he has this device that's just later in the chapter. And also, going back a bit, so the Jedi have a device to let them breathe underwater. And by the way, also, they don't know how long they have to swim to get to the Gungan city. And it's never mentioned like they're running out of air supply. So this, I think the most appropriate interpretation for this science fantasy device, well, this scientific device in this science fantasy universe is, it is giving them air from the water. It's not, it's some sort of like a rebreather or like gills, as opposed to it being just containing air for them to breathe. I think that is far more reasonable, because there's no talk about time limits. So there's no reason for them not to use it. But it's also, so they have that device, apparently part of standard equipment. It's just there. But their primary weapon can't get wet. Guns work underwater, but a lightsaber doesn't. I mean, it's true, because a bullet is sealed, and the chemical reaction involved with how they fire, you can fire a gun underwater. It's not necessarily recommended, and a gun can be submerged in water, you take it out, you fire. I mean, it's, again, not recommended, but the technology completely allows that. A lightsaber you can't do the same with. But we have devices in just outstanding equipment that allows us to breathe underwater. Final point. Oh yeah. This is one thing that when I realized, it's like, okay, this is actually like really screwed up. Hang on, let me actually try to find this better. No, it would be earlier. Okay. No, it must be earlier. Okay. Yes. What earlier? Okay, he doesn't mention them there, but Qui-Gon recognizes the bipedal things that the Gungan soldiers use, riding two-legged mounts with build faces not entirely dissimilar to the Gungan. Kadu, Qui-Gon recalled, swamp runners with powerful legs, great endurance, and keen senses. Okay, swamp runners. They run. So they're terrestrial. The Gungans are sick. They domesticated these things enough to be able to ride them and then drag them underwater. Okay, seriously, think about it. That's like taking a horse and forcing it to Atlantis. That's what we're kind of talking about here. All right, if Atlantis were real as an underwater city, not just the crap, I'm trying to remember what it is, because it is actually an island that they think may have been the origin for the Atlantis myth. It was fairly advanced, but it had a volcano there and may have just erupted, wiping out the civilization that had formed there. But like an actual underwater city, a living underwater city for Atlantis, and you take the Arabian horse and dragged it down there. The hell is wrong with you? That is sick! But that's exactly what the Gungans did. They are sick! I'm sorry, I realize that. When I'm getting to that, it's like, wait a minute. Why would you do this? I mean, it's like, technically, the similar face would seem to suggest that they evolved together. Okay, then that also means that the Gungans are terrestrial. So why did they move underwater? They're well equipped physiologically for being underwater, because I think we can interpret that they are able to breathe underwater, because Jar Jar was able to swim the same distance that the Jedi needed the breathing apparatus for. Okay, so it's that seems to be the case there, that they can breathe underwater, especially because he's also described as having a skinny chest, So he doesn't have the lung capacity for going really, really far. Okay, so it's like, and he's not described as efficient like a blue whale. Blue whales are freaky efficient. Because they will, oh crap, I'm trying to remember some of it, but it's like they can with a single stroke go a huge distance, just passively. Crap, I'm trying to think of the actual term for it, but it's just, my brain is not fully working. Um, but yeah, they're amazing. Blue whales are amazing. But that's not what a Gungan is. So it would seem to be then, because for the faces to be similar, they would have to have developed along a similar evolutionary path, which would mean in the same location, but also potentially a common species not too far back, a common ancestor not too far back. So the Gungans then should also be terrestrial, but they decided to move underwater and took these things with them because they're sick. Because, I mean, that's clearly a species that is not meant to be underwater. It's like, we're going to force it under there. And then it's going to die there. Because it's also, you can't get it back out. How are you going to get it back out? Can the cities be raised up? Or something, it's like, none of that is described there. Which is also then, why do you have the military training on that? Because you got to figure out some way to get them up there. I mean, it's like, you have to have terrestrial places, like maybe even full terrestrial Gungan cities. It's I get that it's fanciful. It is science fantasy. I get that, but it still is. I really have to lean on fantasy for this to make sense, because it's like, no, the Gungans are just sick and stupid. Why would you hide underwater like that? When you are potentially not an underwater species. Unsure about that. But it just doesn't make, and you're using something, you've domesticated an animal that is meant to be terrestrial, and yet you don't keep any, it makes no sense. I mean, it's like, if you go completely underwater, you'd expect to do, was it hydroculture? Is that where you'd be growing, like you'd be eating seaweed and such? I mean, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is a good book. Good movie too. At least the 1950s one, I think it's from the 50s, with Kirk Douglas. That's one of my favorite movies growing up. But in the book, it does talk about how, yes, they have farms underwater. So it's different kinds of seaweed and such, fish that they will have, as well as abalone, and I think even sea cucumbers I mentioned. And it's like, they've gotten so good at producing this food as well, and cooking it, that, you know, it's even in the movie where somebody's eating it, and it's like, it tastes like steak. It's like, it isn't, it's this. And it's like, it's really, really neat. So it's like, okay, you do that, but then why do you keep the horse that has no place there, and potentially might not have the ability to consume the same diet as you? Because that's another thing as well. Not every species, it's like, we humans, we're lucky, we're omnivores. It basically just depends on the specific gut bacteria we have, which is another thing that's super fascinating, just like the blue whale. With my understanding is some of the bacteria that live in our gut is there to break down materials. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure the way it works is humans have no ability to break down the lactose of other animals. We don't. Even those that are lactose tolerant. But some of us, I'm included in this, we do have the bacteria that will break it down for us. So the bacteria break down the lactose from, like, a cow into other things that we can then digest, whereas those who are lactose intolerant can't. They lack those bacteria, so their bodies cannot digest it at all, and that leads to their problems with lactose intolerance. I'm pretty sure I've seen it explained that way at least once, but there's a lot of things when you get into the gut microbiome. Oh my god, there's so much fascinating stuff there. It's really awesome. It really, really and truly is. But anyway, and I will also admit, I have at least one story idea where it's like, I will be, that'll be part of it, so I'll need to do some research there. But the idea of manipulating that is actually very, very fascinating, and fully a kind of science fiction stuff. It's awesome. But still, come back to it. It is not unreasonable that this terrestrial horse-like species I'm just calling it that way because that's how they're using it, is as a horse. Might require food that would also be terrestrial. So you're either dedicating part of your cities to growing terrestrial food, or you just keep terrestrial, in which case then you are going to have the whole thing just doesn't make sense with the Gungans. It really doesn't. That's the point I'm really trying to come back to. Along with them being sick. I'm sorry, but trying to take a horse to Atlantis was large enough that, you can have your security forces riding around them. It's like, that is screwed up. It is. Does that make Darth Jar Jar make more sense or not? Well, it's like they're already kind of evil. Because this, some people would recognize this as animal abuse to do this. Because it also means that you have to very, very, very precisely control every aspect of these animals' lives. So some people might be like, damn, the Gungans are kind of evil. So Darth Jar Jar makes more sense now. Anyway, yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know yet what I'm thinking for the story. Because some of these points are legitimately, as I said, they are points like what I'd expect out of Empire Strikes Back. Where we're getting things because it serves a purpose other than the story. Where they're not rational for the story. They excuse me, they let you do other things. Like, you want this underwater city. Okay. And a species that lives there. Okay, but it's a species that can't be known by anyone else. Okay. It's like to serve the spectacle instead of serve the story, which, don't do that. It's like that is piece of advice that I have for anyone interested in telling stories is don't do things for the spectacle. Okay, do things for the story. It can be spectacle, but it's also, and I fully admit, I got some things that I do for that are in these stories for spectacle, but it's also, I made sure that the story got there naturally. And if it didn't, then if I couldn't get the story there, then it didn't happen. I mean, like, that's completely true. One of the things, when I do the assigned reading stuff for The Children of Many Gifts, there's one chapter I'm going to be talking so much about. Because the way I originally wrote it, I wanted something about a specific character to be in there. And I couldn't. The way it flowed, when I first wrote that chapter, I could not include it. There was no place for it. It didn't make sense. I would have had to have wedged it in, and that would have been inappropriate. So I couldn't do it. But later, when doing editing, I realized I had to make a character trait more consistent, or rather a moment for a character, an aspect of a character more consistent. Why Constance has a certain change of heart, if anyone ever reads that book. I realized I needed to do some rewriting there, and when I did, now I could actually include this point in this one chapter. So it's like, okay, I had to rewrite a fair amount of the chapter, and it's like, okay, now it actually flows. I can include this thing. But it still is, if not for that point that I really, really wanted in there, because I recognize it's completely accurate and true for this other character. But I could not have it. Which would mean it would have been one of those things only ever in my mind, only ever in my notes, if not for that later rewrite. Because I'm sorry, but that's how it has to work. That is how it has to work. You tell the story. You tell the story that wants to be told. You don't tell the story you necessarily want to tell. So spectacle, it's not the priority. The story is. And it's just, Empire is a horrible example. Well, it's a very strong example of when you're doing spectacle over story. And I'm starting to feel like we may be having that with Phantom Menace as well, which is disappointing. But we will see. We will see, because it's also possible it is only certain points in it. But it might be more than that. I'm just trying to think through the movie. Are there things in that are purely spectacle like that? I mean, nothing's really coming to mind. We'll see. We'll see. Both as I read more, because then I'll remember the movie better, and whenever I watch the movie, I will be paying attention to that. But I got to be stopping. This is already going kind of long, and my throat is not getting better from doing this. But yeah, so here, I do want to quickly look. Chapter 5 is Okay, so it looks like Chapter 5 just is them going through the core. Which actually, let me see if I can just skim over. Okay. I'm just trying to see if there is anything that suggests. No, I'm not seeing anything, and I'll know better tomorrow when I read it. But I'm not seeing anything that makes clear that they've even traveled that far. So it does seem like the core, when they say travel through the core, what they actually mean is that they're just going through underwater caverns and such, as opposed to actually going through the core of the planet, which might make sense if it's just the body of water that the city is connected to the body of water near Theed, but it is just, that as opposed to like that. Still makes it weird to call it the core, but it would allow the Trade Federation invasion to be much nearer to Theed than just saying than it going to the core and out would be. But yeah, we'll see. It's something I'm definitely going to try to pay attention to when I read it tomorrow and type in my notes and all that fun stuff.